I'm 75 years old, and I wake up most mornings before the sun because I have somewhere important to be. Because sleep doesn't come easily when your life finally gets quiet enough to hear your own thoughts. The house is tidy, too tidy. No toys on the floor, arguments over breakfast, no one asking me where I've been. People think regret comes crashing in all at once, like a storm. It doesn't. It seeps in slowly, like water through a cracked wall, unnoticed for years, until one day the foundation gives way. Most of my life, I believed I was doing the right thing. I told myself I was being responsible, providing, building something that would matter. I believed sacrifice was noble and that love could wait its turn. I was wrong. It took me 54 years to understand a truth so simple it feels cruel. The things you postpone in the name of success don't pause. They move on without you. If you're younger than me, this isn't a story meant to impress you. It's a warning, one I wish someone had forced me to hear when I was still too busy to listen. I was 21 when I decided who I was going to be, or at least who I thought I had to be. I grew up in a modest household where stability was admired more than joy. My parents weren't unhappy people, just tired ones. Bills were always paid late, conversations were practical, and dreams were treated like expensive luxuries. So when I got into medical school, it felt like winning a permanent escape. I wanted certainty, respect, a life where money wasn't a constant worry. Becoming a doctor seemed like the ultimate answer, not just to financial fear, but to my need to matter. At 24, I married my college sweetheart, Elaine. She loved my drive. Or maybe she loved who I was when I wasn't studying. She used to say, "Just don't disappear into the job." I laughed every time she said it. Doctors didn't disappear, I told her. They showed up when it mattered. Our first child came during my residency. I missed the birth by 3 hours. "You'll make the next milestone," I said, kissing Elaine's forehead like a promise. I believed it. The warnings were there early. I just labeled them as temporary. Medicine rewards endurance, not balance. I learned that quickly. My days started before dawn and ended long after my children were asleep. I told myself it was a phase. Residency would end, then fellowship, then things would slow down. They didn't. I justified everything with the same sentence. This is for them. When my daughter learned to ride a bike, I was on call. When my son performed in his first school play, I was closing a double shift. I watched their lives through stories Elaine told me later, always softened so I wouldn't feel too guilty. I remember one particular evening. My son must have been 12. I called home from the hospital around 8, exhausted, expecting the usual brief check-in. When he answered, his voice had changed. Deeper, unfamiliar. For a split second, I thought I'd dialed the wrong number. "Dad," he said, and I realized I'd missed it. The cracking, the gradual shift from boy to young man. His childhood had a soundtrack I'd never learned. I stood there in the fluorescent hallway, chart tucked under my arm, and felt something crack inside me too. But I didn't know what to do with that feeling, so I filed it away, just like everything else that hurt. Career wins piled up, promotions, research recognition, a reputation for being dependable. Colleagues admired my commitment. Patients trusted me. At home, silence grew. Elaine stopped waiting up for me. Then she stopped asking when I'd be home. Eventually, she stopped sharing her disappointments altogether. I noticed, but instead of asking why, I worked more. Work was predictable. People at the hospital needed me. At home, I wasn't sure anymore. My daughter started keeping a calendar on the refrigerator, color-coded. Soccer games in blue, recitals in green, family dinners in red. She'd mark them weeks in advance, like she was scheduling an appointment with a doctor she could never quite pin down. Most of those dates stayed unmarked by me. No check mark, no "Dad was here." Just a quiet record of my absence. I missed the subtle breaking points because I was too focused on not failing professionally. I thought, as long as I wasn't fired, everything else could be repaired later. Later became my favorite lie. At 49, I became head of my department. There was a small ceremony, applause, handshakes, a plaque with my name engraved. I stood there smiling, feeling nothing, just a quiet exhaustion. That night, I came home early for once. The house was dark. Elaine had left a note on the counter. Dinner's in the fridge. No celebration. No excitement. I reheated the food alone and ate standing up. That was the first time I admitted something was wrong, not with my career, but with the life surrounding it. I had reached the summit I'd spent decades climbing, and the view was empty. I walked through the house afterward, noticing how unfamiliar it felt. My children's rooms looked like hotel rooms, clean, impersonal, temporary. I realized I didn't know their favorite music, or their fears, or who they were becoming. Success had cost me context. The breaking point didn't come with drama, no sirens, no collapse. It came in the form of an envelope. Elaine had written a letter because she said talking no longer worked. She wasn't angry. That's what terrified me most. She wasn't even sad in the way I expected. She was tired of being second, tired of explaining my absence to the kids, tired of living with someone who was physically present but emotionally unreachable. The letter was 3 pages, handwritten. Her handwriting was steady. No tears had smudged the ink. That's how I knew she'd made peace with this decision long before I ever saw it coming. She wrote about specific moments I didn't remember, which made it worse. A parent-teacher conference I'd promised to attend, but canceled last minute. Our anniversary dinner where I'd spent 40 minutes on my phone dealing with a patient crisis. The night our son asked if Daddy still lived here. But one line in particular has never left me. I stopped expecting you to show up years ago. What breaks my heart now is that the kids have too. She asked for separation. I tried to fix it the only way I knew how, by rearranging my schedule, by promising change, by offering future time. I even took 2 weeks off work, something I'd never done. But sitting across from her at the kitchen table, seeing how calm she was, I realized I was already too late. She'd grieved this marriage while still in it. She looked at me and said something I'll never forget. You keep offering me a future that never arrives. I wanted to argue, to defend myself, to explain that everything I'd done was for us. But the words died in my throat because even I didn't believe them anymore. By the time I understood what she meant, the damage was done. The separation became a divorce. The kids chose routines that didn't include me much, not out of spite, out of habit. I had built a life that functioned perfectly without my presence. I live alone in a quiet apartment not far from the hospital I retired from. My days are slow, predictable, peaceful in a way that feels undeserved. I see my children on holidays. They're kind to me, respectful, but there's a distance that politeness can't hide. I'm more of a guest than a pillar in their lives. My daughter calls every few weeks, usually on Sunday afternoons. The conversations are pleasant but surface level. She tells me about her work, her travel plans, the book she's reading. I listen and ask questions, but I can feel her carefully curating what she shares. She's kind enough to include me, but not close enough to need me. Last year, she got engaged. She called to tell me, and I could hear the joy in her voice when she talked about him. How he makes her laugh, how he shows up, how he remembers the small things. She didn't mean it as a comparison, but I felt it anyway. She asked if I'd walk her down the aisle. Of course I said yes, but I wonder if she asked out of obligation or genuine desire. I suppose I'll never really know. Elaine remarried years ago. She looks happy, genuinely so. I'm glad for her, even if the sight of it tightens something in my chest. I ran into them once at a farmer's market. Her husband had his arm around her, and they were laughing about something mundane, picking out vegetables. It was such an ordinary moment, and yet it held everything I'd never given her. Presence, attention, the luxury of being unhurried. My son lives across the country now. We text occasionally, short messages. He sends photos of his kids, my grandchildren, beautiful children I barely know. When I visit, they're polite but shy around me. I'm the stranger who shows up once or twice a year with gifts, but no history. The hardest losses aren't the loud ones. They're the moments that never happened. The conversations we didn't have. The trust I assumed would wait. The love I thought was unconditional to the point of neglect-proof. You can't go back and insert yourself where you chose absence. Regret, I've learned, isn't about what you did wrong. It's about what you didn't do often enough. Here's what it took me 54 years to learn. Your career will never love you back. It will take everything you give it and ask for more. It will applaud your sacrifices publicly while quietly eroding your private life. And when you're finally done, it will replace you without ceremony. The people you love don't need perfection. They need presence. Not someday, not when things calm down. Now. Don't confuse providing with parenting. Don't confuse stability with intimacy. Don't assume the people who wait for you will always be willing to. Balance isn't about equal hours. It's about deliberate priorities. About choosing to be unavailable to some opportunities so you can be fully available to the people who matter.